You know what your feeder looks like. You have stood in front of it 100 times. The red plastic ports, the clear chamber of seed, the weathered wood of the pole, the chickadees and goldfinches moving through what looks to you like a perfectly ordinary piece of your backyard. You know this scene. You have memorized it the way you memorize any familiar thing until you stop really seeing it at all. But here is what no one tells you when they sell you that feeder, when you fill it on Saturday mornings and watch the birds arrive. Every single bird at that feeder is looking at a completely different scene than you are. Not slightly different, not a variation on the same image. Something so far outside what your brain is physically capable of processing that there is no way to show it to you directly. No image that could bridge the gap. Because the gap is not about resolution or focus or distance. It is about an entire dimension of visual information that your brain was never wired to receive. The world your birds live in is more vivid, more layered, more complex than anything your eyes can access. The feeder you have been looking at for years is to them a completely different object in a completely different landscape. And the yard surrounding it, the trees, the lawn, the fence line, the shadow under the eave where a wren sometimes tucks in the afternoon, is a visual world so far from what you see that researchers who study it reach for the language of foreign countries, of colors that don't exist in your experience. Your birds are not living in your yard. They are living in a version of your yard that you have never seen. What it actually looks like would stop you mid-breath. Welcome back to Wild Bird Whisper. Subscribe before you leave, because what you are about to discover will change the way you stand at your window for the rest of your life. Today we are going inside the visual world of the birds in your yard, the biology of how they see, what they see that you cannot, how your feeder looks through their eyes, and what the birds themselves look like to each other in that extraordinary light. Stay until the end, because the last thing we cover is the one that almost no one talks about, and it is about what your birds see when they look at you. Stay for that one. It changes everything. Number one, your birds have a color receptor you do not. Here is where everything starts. Human eyes have 3 types of color receptors called cones, one sensitive to red light, one to green, one to blue. Your brain takes the combined signal from all 3 and produces the full range of color you experience. You see millions of colors this way, and it feels vast. It is not. The birds at your feeder have 4 types of cones. They are tetrachromatic, meaning their visual system processes a 4th channel of color information that your brain has no hardware to receive. That 4th channel is ultraviolet light. Wavelengths shorter than violet, invisible to your eyes completely. Not dimly visible, not accessible with effort. Invisible. 0 information reaching your brain from that part of the spectrum every moment of every day of your life. To a chickadee, ultraviolet is just another color in the palette, as natural as red or blue, present in everything it sees, from the moment it opens its eyes in a dark cavity at dawn to the moment it closes them again at night. Ornithologists studying tetrachromacy have described the difference between human and avian color vision as comparable in scale to the difference between human color vision and color blindness. Not a minor upgrade, a fundamentally different experience of the visual world. You can understand it intellectually, the way you can understand that a dog hears frequencies above your range. The sounds are real. The dog is responding to them. You simply have no access. Bring that understanding now to your feeder. What you're looking at is a lower resolution, dimensionally reduced version of the scene the birds are navigating. Number 2, what your feeder actually looks like through bird eyes. Your feeder, the one sitting in your yard right now, almost certainly has ultraviolet properties you have never seen and never will. Many plastics, including the red and yellow plastics most common in commercially made feeders, reflect UV light in patterns that are invisible to humans but present and clear to any bird approaching them. The red port on your tube feeder is not just red to the house finch perched at it. It is a more visually complex object, with UV reflectance your eye registers as nothing layered into the color you do see. The feeder you look at is a simplified version of the object the bird is using. But the feeder is only the beginning. Expand the frame to the full yard. The bark of the tree behind your feeder has UV patterns your eyes flatten into brown. The lichen on the fence post reflects UV in ways that look uniform to you and visually rich to a chickadee. The grass, which you see as a continuous green, is a landscape of UV variation to a bird moving above it. The shadows between shrubs have a different UV signature than the lit areas beyond them, and birds navigating your yard are reading that information continuously. Your yard, the one you have been seeing all your life, the one you know like a room in your own house, is something entirely different from what the birds are actually moving through. They know its visual geography in detail you cannot access. You know the yard you built. They know the yard that is actually there. Number 3, what the birds at your feeder look like to each other. This is the part that changes the way you watch your birds most dramatically, because the birds you think you are seeing are not the birds the other birds are seeing. Take the male house finch, the one with the red on his head and chest that you can see clearly from across the yard. That red is real. You are genuinely seeing it. What you are not seeing is the UV component layered into those feathers, a visual signal embedded in the feather structure itself that the female house finch reads immediately and that your eyes have no capacity to detect. Research using UV-sensitive cameras has shown that birds that appear nearly identical to human observers reveal dramatic differences in plumage under UV. Female birds that look almost indistinguishable to us are, in UV, distinctly and specifically different from each other in ways that are immediately apparent to any other member of their species. The goldfinch at your thistle sock, the black and yellow bird so familiar that you have stopped really looking at it, has UV-reflective yellow feathers that make it visually spectacular to other goldfinches in a way that has no equivalent in anything you have ever seen. The blue in a blue jay's feathers is not pigment. It is structural color produced by the physical structure of the feather barbs scattering light. Under UV, that structural scattering produces additional visual complexity invisible to you. What this tells you about the activity at your feeder is this: the social dynamics, the mate assessments, the status signals, the subtle dominance displays that determine which bird gets the perch and which one waits are happening partly in a visual channel you cannot access. You are watching the scene through frosted glass. You don't know the glass is there because it has always been there. Number 4, how the fourth receptor changes what birds find and eat. The fourth cone is not only about appearance, it changes what birds can locate and choose. Many seeds have UV reflective surface patterns, natural ones, that carry information about ripeness and nutritional quality that birds have evolved to read at a glance. Researchers studying seed selection under controlled UV conditions found that UV access changes which seeds birds prefer. Not because the seeds taste different, because they look different. And the visual signal carries real information about quality that is legible to a bird and invisible to you. This has implications for your feeder that are easy to overlook. The seed in your chamber looks one way to you, it looks something else to the bird at the port. The choice that bird makes, this seed and not that one, this feeder and not the one 2 houses down, is partly happening in visual information you cannot observe. When a bird passes your feeder without stopping on a morning when it looks perfectly full and clean to you, some part of that pass is a visual assessment you are not equipped to make. You are watching the behavior. You are not seeing the information driving it. Number 5, the light your birds use that you have already lost. Most backyard birds are active in the hours immediately surrounding dawn and dusk when light levels are shifting rapidly and conditions are very different from the midday light we tend to imagine when we think about vision. In the dim gray of early morning, when you are navigating shapes and outlines at the kitchen window, the birds arriving at your feeder are seeing a world that still has color and fine detail. Many birds have significantly higher rod cell density than humans, the receptors responsible for low-light vision. The chickadee landing at your feeder in the first minutes of dawn is not operating in the gray blur you're squinting at. It has considerably more usable visual information than you do in those conditions. The dusk-feeding rush, that intense period of activity at feeders in the last hour of light, reflects this. Birds are not racing the dark the way a human might. They have more usable light than you do, and they are spending every minute of it. The light you can no longer use with any detail is still working for them. The bird you can barely see on a branch in the evening can move through dense vegetation at full speed in that same light without slowing down. You are not losing the day at the same time they are. Number 6, your feeder as a memorized landmark. Here's something that rarely comes up in conversations about bird vision, but that changes how you understand every bird that returns to your yard. Birds navigate partly by visual landmarks, and those landmarks are stored in full tetrachromatic detail. When a chickadee returns to your feeder day after day through an entire winter, it is not navigating in abstract spatial terms. It has stored a visual image of that feeder, that tree behind it, that fence corner, that corner of your house, in 4-color UV-inclusive detail. The landmark it is navigating back to is richer and more specific than any image you could form of the same location. When you change something in your yard, repaint a structure, move the feeder 3 feet, add a large plant that alters a sight line, you are changing a visual landmark in a way that may be more disorienting to the birds than it appears to you. The bird that hesitates after you've rearranged things is reading a scene that no longer matches its stored image and recalculating before committing to the approach. What it remembers of your yard is more detailed than what you remember. It has been paying a different kind of attention. And number 7, what your birds see when they look at you. I promised you this at the beginning, and here it is. Human skin reflects UV light. Human clothing reflects UV light. Not in ways we can see, not in ways we have any awareness of, but the reflection is real. And the birds in your yard are registering it. Researchers who study bird cognition and individual recognition have noted that the visual signature of a specific person to a bird almost certainly includes UV information that is not available to the human observer watching the same interaction. When a bird has learned to recognize you, what it is recognizing is not only the face you see in the mirror, it is that face plus a layer of UV-specific visual information that makes your signature even more distinct and more memorable to a bird than visible light alone could account for. The chickadee that knows you, the one that doesn't flush when you step outside, the one that keeps eating while you stand 2 feet from the feeder and do not move, has a richer, more complete image of you than you have ever had of yourself. It has memorized a version of you that you have never seen, a version of you that exists only in that small bird's perception, assembled from a part of the light spectrum you have never been able to use. On winter mornings, when you stand at the kitchen window with your coffee and watch the birds moving through the feeder, understand that you are not invisible in there. The UV signature coming off your face through the glass, the reflection off your jacket, the outline and color, and something beyond color that the bird's 4th receptor catches, all of that is information. You are a known shape in a visual world more vivid and more complex than you will ever directly experience. But you are in it. You have been in it every time you stepped outside. The feeder you look at every morning is not the feeder the birds come to. It is something layered with light you cannot detect, set inside a yard that is richer and more specific than what your eyes give you access to. The birds navigating that yard know it well. They know your yard in 4-color detail. They know each other in color frequencies that make every interaction at that feeder more visually complex than any human has ever been able to directly witness. And they know you. In whatever passes for recognition in a bird's mind, they have stored a version of you that is more complete than the one you carry yourself. A version that includes a channel of light you cannot see. There is something in that worth sitting with. Tell me in the comments, is there a bird at your feeder right now that seems completely unbothered by you no matter what you're wearing or how close you get? I want to know which bird it is and how close it lets you come. I read every one of these. I'll see you in the next one.